is shocking.
Caitlyn Clark will be sidelined for at least 2 weeks
with a quad injury.
Footage has emerged how Caitlyn Clark got hurt.
Fouls her for the 4th time. It's cheating.
Many WNBA fans are calling out the referee problem.
The referees literally turned their back.
They said she'd transform the league. They said she'd bring the spotlight, but no one said the league would fight her every step of the way. In just a few games, Caitlyn Clark went from being the WNBA's most celebrated rookie to the most targeted player on the court.
Caitlyn Clark is the driving force behind the interest in the Fever and the interest in the WNBA.
Rookie Caitlyn Clark was subject to several intentional fouls.
And not by opponents alone. This wasn't just tough defense. This wasn't just a welcome to the pros moment. What fans witnessed was something far more calculated, far more dangerous.
After every single game, WNBA players, fans, coaches are all complaining about the referees, and they have shown that they're not going to change anything because the referees continue to be horrible.
Game after game, Clark was battered, shoved, and denied protection by the very people meant to enforce fairness, the referees. And now it's all come to a boiling point. What started as missed calls turned into blatant no calls, hard fouls that left her on the floor while the whistle stayed silent.
Felines head coach Stephanie White, she was complaining about her team not getting a whistle, not being respected.
And just when it couldn't get worse, the league's golden ticket was sidelined with a quad injury, raising eyebrows and triggering outrage. Suddenly, every shove that went unpunished, every hand check that got ignored, every time Caitlyn looked to the official for justice and got none.
She will be out for 2 weeks minimum following a quad strain.
Caitlyn Clark and Sophie Cunningham going to the officials and trying to, ask for an explanation of what had just occurred. That official completely stonewalled them.
It all started to look like more than coincidence. It started to look personal. But here's the twist no one saw coming. Reports are now exposing the ugly truth behind the officiating system.
This is a WNBA problem, and as more and more eyeballs are watching this league, it becomes growingly an issue. The officiating feels you never have a true grasp on what it's going to be.
The refs? Many of them barely have G League experience. The rule interpretations? They don't come from the officials. They come from a hidden committee of stakeholders, general managers, and coaches dictating how physical the league should be.
The referees are not listening to them. They're not listening to the coaches. They're not listening to the players. They're not listening to the fans. They're listening to their stakeholders. That's why I keep saying nothing is going to change till the mindset and whoever's running all of this, the stakeholders, governance, whoever these people are.
And Caitlyn? She just happens to be standing in the middle of a storm where politics, power, and profit collide. Now, after weeks of mounting frustration, viral backlash, and public outcry from coaches, players, and fans, the WNBA is facing a fire it can't ignore.
If this injury does anything, it should be a wake-up call to the WNBA, the Players Association, the team owners, that just like that, all this fanfare, all this interest, all this newfound attention on the league can disappear overnight.
And with lawsuits being whispered and rumors swirling that the referees were never neutral to begin with, this might be the moment everything changes. The question is, how far will the league go to silence the star they built their empire around? Type CC100 if you're a real Caitlyn Clark fan.
Caitlyn Clark is being roughed up, but the physical wear and tear on Caitlyn Clark, I'm not surprised that 2 weeks into the season, she's already got an injury.
Caitlyn Clark has always been known for her toughness. At Iowa, she was unstoppable, setting records, drawing millions of viewers, and redefining the modern game. When she entered the WNBA, expectations were sky high, not just for her performance, but for the energy she'd inject into a struggling league.
2024 was a year of unprecedented growth in viewership in the WNBA, a substantial amount of which can be attributed to Caitlyn Clark, who took the basketball world by storm after an all-time college career.
Who had appeared in 185 consecutive games between her career at Iowa and her time with the Indiana Fever. 139 games with the Iowa Hawkeyes. She never missed one.
And for a while it worked. Ticket sales soared. Broadcast numbers skyrocketed. But what followed wasn't celebration, it was hostility. From the opening tip of her pro debut, it became clear that opposing teams weren't just trying to beat her, they were trying to break her.
Caitlyn Clark, somebody who was responsible for 26.5 of all WNBA economic activity last season, including revenue from merchandise, ticket sales, and television.
Caitlyn Clark out at least 2 weeks waited, but can the WNBA maintain without her? Can the WNBA pack arenas, draw ratings?
Game after game, Clark faced a level of physicality that felt less like professional defense and more like punishment. Players pressed her full court, shoved her off cuts, knocked her to the floor, and officials let it all happen. It didn't matter if the contact was excessive or even dangerous. The whistle rarely came.
The referees just exposed their hand so bad, bro. I mean, they just didn't care no more. They didn't care. The world was watching how bad the cause was. They didn't care at all. They was going to get their issue off against the Fever no matter what. And I'm here to tell you, that's exactly what went down, bro. They have an agenda against Caitlyn Clark.
While any other top rookie might expect a degree of protection, Clark was left to fend for herself. And the narrative from the league? She has to adjust. But why was the adjustment only one-sided?
Said the reason that people are complaining is because they haven't watched the WNBA before, and these are just new fans who don't understand. But there's clearly an issue.
Then came the injury. After pushing through obvious fatigue and playing 35 minutes a game, Caitlyn Clark was ruled out with a left quad strain. 2 weeks, minimum.
Indiana Fever guard Caitlyn Clark has suffered a left quadricep strain and will be out for a minimum of 2 weeks.
A brutal blow to the Indiana Fever and to the WNBA's biggest draw. But for many fans, it wasn't just a random setback. It was the direct result of weeks of unchecked contact, relentless physicality, and league-sanctioned negligence.
Caitlyn Clark appears to be hunted every game. She deals with physicality that no other player in the league is dealing with. The WNBA not stepping in to protect their cash cow, their only draw, their only star. And this is the end result.
This wasn't inevitable. This was preventable. What made it worse was the silence. The league didn't acknowledge the punishment Clark had been taking. No statements, no apologies. Just another name on the injury report. But this name mattered more than any other. This was the face of the league's new era, sidelined not because she couldn't handle the pressure, but because the system refused to protect her.
It's the Caitlyn Clark disrespect. And what I mean by that is you've got somebody who is obviously the most popular player in basketball. You got somebody that I would argue may be a top 5 most popular athlete in the United States of America. All right. You got this athlete in a league that nobody's been watching, never turned a profit, and your system is broken against that team.
Even opposing players hinted at it. Kelsey Mitchell, her own teammate, subtly urged Caitlyn to listen to her body, an unspoken acknowledgement that Clark was pushing through something most players wouldn't. The fans saw it, the media saw it, and now everyone's asking, why was the WNBA's biggest star left this vulnerable in the first place? And who benefits from keeping her off the court?
But Kelsey Mitchell said even if there is a injury, hopefully it's just, like a little nagging thing. And again,
take care of your body and just make sure you I think recovery is everything. I think if you're in tune to your body, you know what you need. This is Caitlyn.
The deeper fans looked into the WNBA's officiating, the more disturbing the picture became. Referees aren't just inexperienced, they're underqualified. Some went from officiating high school games straight to the WNBA, skipping key development in the G League. These aren't elite-level officials with years of professional experience. They're often learning on the job while officiating the highest-stakes games the league has ever seen. And that inexperience shows, especially when it comes to managing the league's most talked-about player, Caitlyn Clark.
For you guys, and they do not talk about it here. And that's why I also don't want us to personally attack some of these referees. I think they're doing their job. If they're hiring referees who basically didn't have any experience but high school refereeing jobs, and then they did a stint in the G League, like these referees actually aren't. I gained and reconfirmed with myself that not much is going to change.
But what's even more troubling is that these officials aren't making independent decisions. Hidden behind the scenes is a competition committee that tells refs exactly how the game should be called. That committee includes coaches, general managers, and stakeholders, not neutral parties, but people with vested interests in specific outcomes. This isn't just speculation. It's been confirmed in interviews by league insiders. Refs are being told what kind of physicality to allow, what fouls to emphasize, and which style of play best supports the league's branding. Not necessarily what's fair.
There's a committee for stakeholders, coaches, governors, and general managers, and that is saying what style of basketball they want to allow, and the referees are following that law.
Caitlyn Clark's presence threatens that status quo. She brings a different pace, a different spotlight, and a completely different level of media attention, and that disrupts the system. Her style clashes with the rougher, slower, physical game the committee seems to want. The result? She gets punished on the court without protection.
It took us halfway through the season. This year, it took us 4 games for Stephanie White to say, I've had enough.
I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games.
Contact that would draw instant whistles in the NBA, or even college, gets waved off. No calls, no justice, just silence. And when she dares to look for answers from the officials, she gets brushed aside. It's not paranoia. The bias has patterns.
Y'all see what's happening right here? That is a WNBA referee turning his back to Caitlyn Clark and the Fever. Oh my God. I mean, he literally got his back turned, ignoring Caitlyn. I mean, this is bad.
Time after time, Clark takes hits that aren't called. Meanwhile, her slightest contact earns immediate whistles. Coach Stephanie White tried to challenge one of those moments during a critical game. But thanks to an obscure rule, her challenge was blocked because she didn't have a full timeout. Just a reset. The officials were protected. Clark wasn't. That's the kind of twisted rulebook enforcement that doesn't just cost games, it destroys trust.
I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing.
This isn't about 1 or 2 mistakes. It's about a broken structure where refs answer not to the game, not to fairness, but to hidden interests. Caitlyn Clark is being targeted not only by defenders, but by the system itself. A system that seems desperate to control the narrative rather than protect its most valuable star.
The only draw in your league, the only player capable of selling tickets, is potentially out for an extended period of time. What the hell are you gonna do now?
And the more that's exposed, the clearer it becomes. The officiating crisis is no accident. It's by design. The league may try to downplay the issue, but the backlash is exploding. Fans aren't the only ones sounding the alarm. Players, coaches, and analysts across the country are openly calling out the officiating problem, and Caitlyn Clark is at the center of it. This isn't about favoritism, it's about fairness.
In that situation. And I understand the frustration that I think comes the most with officiating is the inconsistencies of officiating. But listen, this is not unique to the WNBA.
When referees allow repeated cheap shots on a star who generates record-breaking attention, people start asking hard questions. And now they're demanding answers. One of the most talked about moments came during the Fever versus Liberty Showdown. With the game on the line, Clark drove to the basket and took a clear foul from Natasha Cloud. Contact so obvious, replays from every angle confirmed it. No whistle, no call, game over.
Very clear foul.
It wasn't.
By Natasha
It's
Cloud.
a foul right here. That's a foul.
We are always going to get controversy. Here's the thing. Most refs aren't going to blow the whistle.
Clark and her teammates immediately confronted the officials, pleading for explanation. They got none. The officials simply walked away. It was a statement, not just to Clark, but to the entire viewing audience. The whistle doesn't work the same for everyone. And it wasn't an isolated incident. Coach Stephanie White tried to challenge a soft foul on Lexi Hull moments earlier. But because she didn't have a full timeout, league rules blocked her from even initiating a challenge. Fans who didn't know the rule assumed White dropped the ball. In reality, her hands were tied by a system designed to shield officials from scrutiny.
All right, when that foul took place, CBS said she's got a challenge left. Well, it didn't matter. She couldn't use it. Stephanie White could not challenge that foul call on Lexi Hull, the one that led to the game-winning free throws from Sabrina Ionescu, because she didn't have a timeout. You need a full timeout, not a reset timeout, to initiate the challenge. Now, my issue with that is it would have been nice if the CBS announcers hadn't even brought up the challenge.
Again, the players were left exposed while the refs stayed protected behind technicalities. The frustration has spilled far beyond Indiana. Brittany Griner interrupted a live halftime interview to curse out the refs on national TV. Other coaches have called the officiating disrespectful and egregious in post-game pressers.
There's clearly a problem if it's not just one team. Also, by the way, it's not just the Indiana Fever. I know it's been the biggest story this week. Brittany Griner left a sideline interview to go yell at the refs.
The complaints aren't just emotional, they're strategic. Players and coaches are pointing out that the rules aren't being applied equally, and the inconsistency is killing the flow of the game. But the WNBA isn't listening. They're brushing off the criticism as growing pains from new fans unfamiliar with the league's physical play style. That excuse doesn't hold up. Physicality isn't the issue. Lack of consistency is. The moment Caitlyn Clark steps on the floor, the rule book changes. She's officiated differently. She's challenged more aggressively. And when she fights through it, the officials ignore the damage until her body gives out.
I did notice in the Liberty game, Caitlyn Clark's shots were all very short. So it was showing that she wasn't like getting off and she was having a difficult time making those threes, and a lot of explosiveness from those 3-point shots does come from your legs.
Now, sidelined with a quad strain, she's the face of a league controversy that refuses to fade. The people speaking up aren't just defending Clark. They're exposing a culture that rewards silence and punishes excellence. Caitlyn Clark was never asking for special treatment. She was asking for the same standard every player deserves. But the more she succeeds, the more resistance she faces, not just from opponents, but from the very system that's supposed to protect her. The backlash isn't dying down, it's building. Because the league underestimated something powerful.
Who had appeared in 185 consecutive games between her career at Iowa and her time with the Indiana Fever. 139 games with the Iowa Hawkeyes. She never missed one.
Obviously, Caitlyn's carrying a lot on her shoulders. A big star that is coming to a lot of these buildings. And
fans aren't just watching anymore. They're paying attention. The WNBA had a moment. A rare golden opportunity to reshape its future around a once-in-a-generation talent. Caitlyn Clark didn't just walk into the league, she ignited it. She sold out arenas, broke viewership records, and brought a wave of new fans ready to believe in the product. But instead of rising with her, the league seems to be collapsing under the pressure, clinging to old power dynamics while ignoring the one truth they can't afford to overlook. The fans are watching everything. They saw her get slammed to the floor and get nothing in return. They saw the refs huddle and walk away. They saw the scoreboard change, not because the better team won, but because someone in stripes chose to look the other way. And now those fans aren't just angry, they're mobilizing. Legal pressure is mounting. Media outlets are digging deeper, and conversations that once lived in private DMS are now becoming headlines. The system is being exposed.
But at the same time, the Fever were on the wrong end of some whistles, it seemed, in this game. And it's seemingly been that way for much of the season. And it's been a recurring theme where there's a level of physicality allowed against them, and they're not allowed to reciprocate on the other end. That particularly, of course, goes for Caitlyn Clark.
For far too long, accountability in the WNBA has been a closed loop. Referees reporting to committees, committees answering to stakeholders, and no one answering to the public. But that loop has been broken by the spotlight Clark brought with her. She didn't ask for controversy. She didn't ask to be the face of a movement. But the moment the whistles went silent and the elbows kept flying, the league made her one. Now, every biased call, every soft foul against her, every no call in the clutch becomes fuel for a fire they can no longer contain. This isn't about playing favorites. It's about protecting the game. Because what's happening to Caitlyn Clark sends a message to every future star, every young girl watching from the stands. Even if you break records, even if you change history, the system might still punish you for shining too bright. That's not just unfair, it's unsustainable. A league that fails to protect its stars is a league that risks losing them. One injury, one controversy, one silent whistle at a time. If the WNBA doesn't take a hard look at its officiating, its leadership structure, and the quiet forces shaping the game behind the scenes, then lawsuits might just be the beginning, because this isn't going away. Caitlyn Clark's fans won't let it. The media won't let it. And the truth? It's already out. The only question left is, will the league do something about it before it's too late?